All right, hello people. It's Tuesday, and I'm going to talk today about lichens. Now, I have a feeling, well, when most people go out into the woods, um, they're taken by the trees because they're big, flowers because they're colorful and pretty, um, maybe fruit hanging from trees and stuff like that, which, is interesting. It's a lot harder to kind of look down and maybe sometimes into the shadows and see a group of organisms. I'm not going to call them plants, they're organisms um, called lichens. Now, they're absolutely fascinating. I was one of those people who never took notice of them. And then when I did, it was like, you're kidding me. This is unbelievable. There are two ways of pronouncing it. Now, in North America, we call them lichens, but in the UK, they call them lichens. And that's interesting. It's British, okay. But I looked up the term and it's Greek. And it comes from a meaning that says to lick. Now, I would say go out there and notice them, even get down on the ground and take a closer look. But the last thing I'd ever do with them is lick them. So I don't know where the word really came from, but that's its origin. Why it's an organism and not a plant is because and there's debates over this in the community that studies these things. First of all, it's a fungus. And the fungus is actually the structure that you see. That's a fungus. But it's in what they call a symbiotic relationship with algae. And in some organisms, cyanobacteria. And they're even now discovering that there may even be a yeast, which is part of it. Now, yeasts are not that really much different from a fungus, so you can understand that. What it does, the fungus gives it the structure, but the cyanobacteria and the algae give it what it lacks, which is sugar. Now, the fungus, actually, we'll go to your backyard or Beaubears Island. It doesn't matter. Wherever there's green stuff, all of that green stuff is connected to a fungus in some manner. And what's happening is, in this relationship, is that the tree or the plant, through photosynthesis, is making sugar. And a fungi cannot make sugar, but it still needs it for energy. Green plants do not do well in bringing nitrogen into their system. Fungus does. So what happens if you look at the root of a tree or the root of a grass leaf or whatever? There's little nodes there, little nodules, and that's the fungus at work. But in this lichen, the two are like this. They can't be separated. It can't be a tree up here and a fungus down there. No, they're working together. And it is so that photosynthesis can be produced and nitrogen can be shared. And they work together in this symbiotic relationship. I read a quote once that I thought was really cool, because somebody said that lichens were the first organisms to discover agriculture. And in a sense, the fungus can actually live on its own. It can get by. And in some places, they say the algae and the cyanobacteria especially can get by. So the question is why? Why do they do that? And why so many varied forms? So a lot of questions there. But what you really wind up with is a micro ecosystem unto itself and an ecosystem of cooperation. Because if they start competing with one another, they're not going to make it. Lichens grow, well, before I go there, lichens have been around a long time. They have fossils that go back 400 million years. So lichens know how to survive. Their growth is 1 millimeter maybe a year. They don't move very quickly. However, their age can be thousands of years old. One organism, and they've done studies of this with trees and stuff, or even on the island. There's a good chance on the island, in that topsoil, could be one fungus. And it's working with the grass, the white pines, the flowers, whatever. It's possible. They have measured genetically fungi that stretch hundreds of miles. That's incredible. It's incredible, and we don't even notice them. So very interesting in that sense. Now, you go onto the island or in any woods, you'll see them growing on bark, hanging from branches, covering a stone. You see them on tombstones. They'll even grow on artificial substances. I've seen pictures of cars rotting with, all of these fungi all over it. I suppose if you just went out, sat down long enough, they'd just start covering you as well. It grows, and this is the thing, it grows under all climatic conditions. There are lichens that grow in very dry. There are ones that grow in very wet. They grow in the Arctic. They are the main plant in the Arctic, where nothing else will grow. That's amazing. And the weirdest thing was the Russians, not that long ago, sent lichens into space. And they were exposed to the vacuum of space, which would obliterate me. They came back to Earth alive and were able to reproduce after being exposed to the vacuum of space. I find that amazing. There are different structures, and a lot of people don't realize that everything they see out there are fungi. There's one type which is called foliose, and folio means a leaf, and these are leaf-like. The most, to me, the one I like the best is called Lungwort, and it's kind of lobed like the interior of a lung, if you've ever seen the interior of a lung. I have. And by the way, things like lungwort, St. John's wort, and stuff like that, wart is an old English term for plant. So this is a lung plant or lungwort. Then there's fruticose. Now it sounds like fruit, but really what it is it doesn't look like a leaf. And it has structure to it. Old man's beard hanging from trees, that's really one. Or if you look at reindeer or caribou lichen, and by the way, they're not caribou moss or reindeer moss, they're not mosses, they're lichens. That kind of structure, though, that's a fruticose. Then there's a crustose, which looks like a crust. You see this on rocks, tombstones, sometimes you'll see it on pathways. You can walk over it and it continues. And then on sometimes bark of trees and things, leprose, which is powder-like. You almost want to look at it and go like that, and it's not going to move. There are 5 other very, very, not rare, but uncommon, and you don't see them a lot, so I'm not going to go into them because you'll never see them on the island anyway. An important thing, especially like with old man's beard hanging there, a lot of people see that. Now, there are some like Spanish moss is actually a parasite. Um, Lichens are not parasitic. They go to other things simply for a place to have a foundation to live. That's all. They're squatters more than anything. They're not parasites. There are 20,000 species, which overrides my brain's capacity to take that in. And they cover 6% of all the Earth's surface. They come in many colors. They change colors when they're wet or dry. Not, it doesn't go from being red to purple, but, and also if you look at some of them, more of the foliose type, with, that has the leaf structure. There's a different color on top and a different color on the bottom. So you can, even Lungwort, you can turn it over and it's very dark and you see this. The best thing about it, though, is they are used as bioindicators, which really means that if you go to a place and you see old man's beard and you see British soldiers and you see lungwort, you are in a very healthy environment. The pollution is low and the good clean air is high. And they are using this now with climate change and pollution and acid rain and stuff like that. They are using these things because if you go into a woods and you don't see them, then there's something wrong. I can't tell you not to breathe, but don't breathe deep. So the whole idea is when you come to the island and you notice all the different varieties, and I have not counted all the different varieties, but we're looking at that. The island sitting at the confluence of the two rivers is a very healthy place. A good place to come out, take a walk, visit, get to know. That's why we're there. The other thing is, and I'm this way about this, in many cultures around the world, and in many different historic time periods, lichens have been used for food. Now, in some places where there's starvation, things like the reindeer and caribou lichens are used. But in some cultures, these things are used as delicacies. I'd really rather have a Greek salad than a bunch of lichens. I don't care what dressing you put on them. However, also, if you see lichens that tend to be yellow, not all, but leave them alone. A lot of the yellow ones are poisonous. Just like I said, never like them. The other thing, and my wife is very much involved in this, lichens have for thousands of years in all cultures, and even today, many people do, they're used for dyeing fabric. And it's a fairly elaborate procedure, but you can get the most amazing colors out of plants that don't even look like these colors. So the whole idea is, here's something out there that I ask, if you have that wonderment about you, get down on your knees and get dirty. Don't touch, don't lick, but start looking at these things. They're underfoot in the shadows, but they've been here since the beginning, practically. See you next time.